sleep? And do you feel okay when you run? Thinking it's doomsday, you got to let it go. So you run, so you run. Pretend you don't see it, that we can live the night when you run.
This is it.
So you run. Everyone says you're amazing now that you're clean. Only you know who the real ones are, 'cause you've seen. There's only one question.
It is Matt Drudge, Sunday night, 1-866-4-DRUDGE, 1-866-4-DRUDGE. And yes, we are going to take more and more calls tonight. There is news tonight besides my announcement of departing Sunday night's regular broadcasting here. And I'm going to ask you, well, why didn't you acknowledge your departure when word got out? And I was thinking, well, we decided, I guess, I asked in July. And I guess the premiere announced it August 30th. So that left 5 shows. Why would I want to do 5 shows of a long goodbye? It's ridiculous. I'm not even, again, the only thing that's uncomfortable for me on this broadcast is saying goodbye to you. I mean, I'm personally, in my life, I'm kind of excited to be able to go to sleep on Sunday nights and to get some extended travel in. And other assorted projects, which I won't go into here. But, with the internet, and this has changed also in the past 3 or 4 years. It used to be, when I traveled, you couldn't get good internet connections. I remember struggling once in Paris. It was embarrassing, and I couldn't get it. I could not get the internet for the life of me in a very well-known hotel in Paris, and I had to leave. Now that has changed, where anywhere in the world you really can get a good internet connection, and I do have a thing for seeing the world, since I cover the world. At least I think I do in my head, on the website. So I like to be firsthand. I like to experience different places, and it also makes me appreciate America more. Sometimes less, but more in most cases. I have a fond appreciation of America when I am abroad. So, I mean, it gets to the point also where, so I was racing back Sunday night to do the radio show. And we had tried, thanks to Trevor Oliver over at Premiere and others, and it's no small triumph that we did this show from all these different remote locations, some announced, some not announced. And I'm thinking of all the places we've done this show from, and we could start doing laundry lists here of thank yous. And I think most of you know who you are, who have helped here through these 9 years. But it also was like, you know what, maybe I don't have to race back. Because I'm on the internet all the time anyway. So it felt like, my love of radio, my love of this audience, of the medium as a whole, okay, fine. And it was a tremendous run for me. And again, like I said, almost 500 shows, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 500 shows. So anyway, we'll take these calls and we'll go into this further. There is a developing story, and I'm looking around. I think Salon.com did it earlier. Oh, yeah, they're just cheering the downfall of the Republican Party over there. But I'm looking, the old gray lady, Giuliani, inspires threat of a third-party run. Why? Okay, let me just read this. Alarmed at the possibility the Republican Party might pick Giuliani as its presidential nominee, and that's very possible. I guess Romney would be the backup. Is Fred in the dugout even at this point? I guess he is. Lackluster money, Fred. Newt says no. So it is taking shape there. Alarmed at the possibility the Republican Party might pick Rudy as its nominee, despite his support for abortion rights, and we just played that devastating sound clip again tonight here. A coalition of influential Christian conservatives is threatening to back a third-party candidate. This is like a nightmare. We're going to get a Perot-type figure in there, because Hillary cannot get 50%, right? Do we agree on that there is no way that the First Lady of our hearts, the Senatress of New York, cannot get 50% of the vote?
I have to say, you go, girl.
Oh, yes! Will you go with me?
Well, maybe if it goes on a gender thing, maybe. So, yeah, that's why she's playing the gender card.
I don't know about you, but I like seeing women in charge.
And, of course, she won't say she's playing the gender card, but this is part of the weaponry there. This is part of the weaponry. So she can't get the 50% like her husband couldn't get the 50%. So there needs to be a third party here. So I'm starting to see this emerge. And the New York Times tomorrow, Christian conservatives threatening to back a third-party candidate. The threat emerged from a group that broke away for separate discussions at a meeting Saturday in Salt Lake City, a secretive conservative networking group called the Council for National Policy. Participants said the smaller group included Dobson, Focus on the Family, Tony Perkins of Family Research Council, others, a direct mail pioneer, dozens of other politically oriented conservatives. Everyone present at the group expressed support for a written resolution stating that if the Republican Party nominates a pro-abortion candidate, we will consider running a third-party candidate. So I assume they're not looking at Bloomberg or Ralph Nader. But see, this is setting up. Why are they doing this to themselves? Take the half loaf, Dobson. Take the half loaf. Oh. But I guess not. Oh, Gary Bauer, he's back at it. Speaking by phone, he urged the group to proceed with caution. I can't think of a bigger disaster for social conservatives, defense conservatives, and economic conservatives than Hillary Clinton in the White House, Bauer said. But I do believe there are certain core issues for the party, low taxes, well, that's Rudy, strong defense, and pro-life. Half loaf, half loaf. And we nominate someone who is hostile in one of those things that will blow up for the GOP. Can't believe this is happening. Where was that clip that I was playing on Rudy talking about lower taxes? They're going to splinter off. They're going to splinter off, and this is how she gets elected under that 50% threshold, which she cannot get. Unless it's going to be totally dominated by women, and I assume maybe that could happen. Okay, this was Rudy on the taxes, which I thought he sounded good. This was 2 weeks ago.
My theory is we got to give things back to you for the common good. The more we can give back to you, the more you're going to spend it in a way that grows jobs, grows incomes, increases investment, has America a growing economy. And that is at the core of each one of the proposals that I'm making. So first thing we have to do, keep the tax rates low, where they are now, and then look for ways to lower them even more. That would be my commitment to you. We'll keep them down where they are right now, and then we will constantly look for ways to lower them more.
All right, but I guess they're talking now of a third-party run. That story makes me sick. That's a disgusting story. But they will do what they want to do. Elsewhere, the New Yorker is out with a story that actually was reported a week ago in the Sunday Times. The U.S. administration has shifted strategy and is drawing up plans for possible airstrikes against Iran. This is according to Cy Hirsch over at New Yorker magazine, and we all bow to Cy Hirsch. President Bush has requested the Joint Chiefs of Staff revise plans for a possible attack on Iran, with the focus on surgical raids against the Revolutionary Guard. Previous contingency plans called for a more elaborate bombing campaign against suspected nuke sites in Iran as well as the other infrastructure. Citing unnamed former officials and government consultants, Cy Hirsch. Bravo, Cy Hirsch. U.S. weighs possible strike on Iran's military. You think it's true? Isn't it Dick Cheney's always sort of accused Cy Hirsch of, like, slightly fabricating things? But who knows? Maybe it was in the UK Sunday Times a week ago that the U.S. draws plans for bombing Iran. So now that's two news organizations reporting that. Well, there will be more debates. One of them is with Chris Matthews over, I believe, on MSNBC, and this will be with Republicans. I wonder how they're going to feel after what Chris Matthews said when he thought it was off mic about Republicans.
Craig, do you think this is going to hurt the party with the majority of the white voters to be seen as having a problem with black voters?
Well, that'd be their only concern, I would imagine. This party does not show much concern for trying to get
it hurts them in the burbs among people who don't like. Sorry, we got to go. Michelle Bernard, I got to go. Craig Crawford, it's great. Thank you. Right now it's time for Tucker. You know, they don't like being known as racist.
They don't like being known as racist. Chris Matthews, moderator of the upcoming Republican debate. And this is what's passing for journalism. That was over on Hardball last week. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to get more of your calls in at 1-866-4-DRUDGE, 1-866-4-DRUDGE. And I also want to play you, they've been coming after Limbaugh for talking about phony soldiers. Well, I'm going to, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is sending a letter to Clear Channel demanding some kind of punishment for Limbaugh for talking about phony soldiers. What happens if I told you 3 days before Limbaugh said that on the air, ABC News did a full report on phony soldiers? You know, it's almost embarrassing that nobody must be watching ABC News or Charlie Gibson or any of these people, because then it wouldn't have been any kind of controversy. I'll let you hear it with your own ears. You won't believe it. The levels they're going to. It's Drudge, Sunday night. All right, it is Matt Drudge on Sunday night at DrudgeReport.com, where we're leading with a woman who somehow ended up dead after she was arrested at the Phoenix airport. What a story that is turning out to be. So she was causing commotion at the gate because they wouldn't let her board. I guess she was running late or security kept her backed up. A traveler who may have accidentally choked herself to death is how they're reporting it. She was in an airport holding cell. She was a wonderful woman and mother, according to New York City's public advocate, who was her relative. A 45-year-old was arrested Friday at Sky Harbor after she became irate when gate crews refused to let her board on a flight for which she was late. The events that led to her death began when she became irate over not being allowed on the U.S. Airways flight. She was rebooked on a later flight. Officers handcuffed her after, I guess, she was being way too aggressive, and took her to a holding room where she kept screaming, authorities said. She just snapped. It's like a modern living snap. It all just came crashing down on her. All the advances we have in our civilization added up to nothing in that moment. They checked on her when she became quiet and found her unresponsive, said Phoenix Police Sergeant Andy Hill. Now, this is their official version. It appears she may have tried to get out of her handcuffs, which ended up around her neck. So they're claiming she had handcuffs around her neck and she choked herself? This is provocative. Neither a stun gun nor pepper spray was used on the woman, authorities said. A medical examiner will determine the exact cause of death. Maybe she had a bad Starbucks. Or maybe too much Starbucks, yeah. Well, my first reaction was they killed her. I mean, that was my first reaction. No way of knowing anything. We weren't in the room. What was your first reaction when you saw this? Of course, I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, that's... if it were not for them not letting her on the flight, I mean, what is this? They're all running late anyway. We got the stats from the feds, the FAA, that all these flights are running late anyway. It's 60-70% rates over the summer. Horrible on-time performance from the airplanes. All right, so one time we're running late. One time Carol Godbaum was running late. Oh, we've got to be rigid. Oh, we're closing. We've got to be here. And they're going to probably sit on the runway anyway for 45 minutes to an hour. Or at the gate. Treating people like barn animals in some of these planes. Can't get up. You can't get the water. You can't go to the bathroom. All right, so one time one passenger is running late. All right, so she gets irate. Too much Starbucks. Too much something. She took the blues instead of the yellows. And... maybe she had a bad song playing on her iTunes. Something was wrong. She snaps. They put handcuffs on her, and somehow she ends up dead in the cell? It's a lot to deal with here. We're watching this story very closely. at the Drudge Report. And we'll be updating throughout. Well, you may have heard that story going into the weekend, and I know Rush Limbaugh himself devoted some of the broadcast to it on Friday. Democrats criticized the nation's number one talk show host for referring to some members of the military as phony soldiers. John Edwards got in on the act. So did Dodd. And on Monday, I guess Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, is sending a letter to Clear Channel demanding some kind of punishment. Maybe they'll, smack him with a golden EIB mic is what Reid wants. For daring to talk about phony soldiers. Does Reid not follow the news? There have been phony soldiers. And that is plural, Oberman. Soldiers. Oberman tried to make the case, maybe there was one phony soldier. But what does that have to do with the plural? Anybody who's watching the Oberman at the show at this point, I mean, that's broadcasting for shut-ins. Well, it turns out ABC News, weekly, the World News with Gibson, just 72 hours before Limbaugh talked about phony heroes and phony troops, they did this with Brian Ross.
A closer look tonight at phony heroes. A famous recruiting slogan once touted the Army as a place to be all you can be. But increasingly, scam artists are posing as the war heroes they never were, claiming credit for acts of courage in Iraq and Afghanistan. Federal officials have launched a crackdown. Operation Stolen Valor, they call it. And tonight, our Brian Ross investigates. At the Washington State Capitol in Olympia this year, a Marine Corps color guard included a Marine chaplain to deliver the opening prayer. But authorities later discovered that the Marine chaplain, Captain Reggie Buttle, was not a chaplain.
I think he went to seminary school and flunked out.
Nor was Buttle a captain, nor had he earned all the medals he wore. In fact, Buttle had never been in the Marines, even though he had officiated at numerous Marine weddings, baptisms, and funerals.
It was devastating to the people who had relied on him.
At a time when tens of thousands of U.S. soldiers had put their lives on the line in Iraq and been honored for their sacrifice and courage, federal prosecutors have had to launch a crackdown on phony heroes.
They want something that they didn't earn. They didn't have the guts to go and do it themselves.
Authorities say many of the phony heroes make up their stories so they can get free treatment at veterans' hospitals.
They're taking money away that should be used for the deserving veterans.
Most of the phonies are spotted by people who really earned their medals. In St. Louis, this supposed Marine with a chest full of honors was turned in because he seemed too fat to be a real Marine. It turns out he never served a day in the Marines.
Once I was in Baghdad...
But authorities say the most disturbing case involves this man, 23-year-old Jesse Macbeth. In a YouTube video seen around the world, Macbeth became a rallying point for anti-war groups as he talked of the Purple Heart he received in Iraq and described how he and other U.S. Army Rangers killed innocent civilians at a Baghdad mosque.
Women and men, while in the prayer, he started slaughtering them.
It was a complete fabrication.
He was in for approximately 6 weeks, and then he was discharged. I don't think he even completed basic training.
Last week in federal court in Seattle, Macbeth offered an apology for defaming the real American heroes as he admitted to lying about his service record and his supposed atrocities, Charlie. Operation Stolen Valor, Brian Ross.
More like, yes, phony politicians and phony reporters and cable news hosts. It's Drudge on Sunday night.